What's up, everybody? Welcome in to the GNC Fantasy Football Show. I'm your host, Greg Bowen, here with my co-host, Chandler Stepp,
Whoop,
and
whoop.
here for another week of, like I said, the GNC Fantasy Football Show. What's new with you this week, Chan?
New. Nothing new happens in my life. The only thing I look
Nothing.
forward to is football and this podcast.
All
Wife's
right.
gone. Wife's gone. She's actually out in Disney for a work-related trip. And, what kind of job do you got to get to go to Disney?
I like it.
But
So it sounds like you need to get out and watch, like I did this past weekend. Watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. What a great fucking movie, man.
is that going to be his last movie? Tarantino's?
He keeps saying that. I don't believe it. We'll see. It was great though. Not your typical Tarantino. I'm not gonna give anything away, but just not your typical thing. But still Tarantino. I know that doesn't make any sense right now, but it will.
I heard
What
rumors that he was thinking about doing a Star Trek movie.
Star Trek? I'm not much of a Star Trek guy. Star Wars. Never watched Star Trek though. I watched Spider Man last night. We went and watched that.
I'm jealous.
The girlfriend, the brother, and I, we went and watched it. They were slightly disappointed, as was I. Still good. Go watch it. Go check it out. But
Yep. Please don't drop any spoilers.
no spoilers here. People would believe anything you say anyway. Anyway, not much else to get into. We're gonna touch on a little bit of news. Not much going on around the league. Before we do though, pretty sure that you wanted to do a huddle up.
Oh, yes. Quick huddle.
Huddle up! Huddle!
Greg, I got two players here for you. Player A, player B.
Okay.
Before I reveal who these players are, I want you to pick who you'd rather have on your team simply based off of these stats.
Okay, and just so the audience knows, I have no idea what this is.
We have not discussed this. Player A, 71 receptions, 725 yards, 5 touchdowns. Player B, 40 receptions, 519 yards, 3 touchdowns. Who would you rather have?
Obviously player A.
Obviously, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. Player A, give me that person.
Before I reveal these, they both have the same ADP. Both of them are going in the 6th round towards the end, about the 9th, 10th pick. It's Tariq Cohen and Sammy Watkins.
Ooh, okay.
Now, you drop those two players next to each other and say, hey, who do you want on your team? I bet a lot of people, and I don't know this, but I would assume a lot of people would say, oh, give me Sammy Watkins. Give me somebody on the Chiefs offense.
I think if you would have asked those names, you drop those names in front of any fantasy player, anybody, which a lot of good fantasy players out there these days. There's a lot of content. People read up on their stuff. So fantasy today compared to 10 years ago is way different. But if you were to drop those two names in front of people a week ago, say 2 weeks ago, before the Tyreek Hill news, I guarantee they would have picked Sammy Watkins. Here now today, I don't know. I don't know so much. I think Sammy Watkins ADP, which again, just a tool that we like to use, especially compared to the rest of our league. I think we're going to continue to see that drop further and further off. I almost would bet that you're going to start to see before the season starts, Sammy Watkins going around 9 or 10 even. How do you feel about that? I mean,
well, the question is, who's the true number 2? What I have seen since the Hill news that he was not going to face any type of suspension from the league is that I saw McCole Hardeman's ADP plummet. Sammy's kind of stayed in the same spot. I mean, he's maybe dropped around. I don't know who the number 2 is there aside from Travis Kelce, but wide receiver wise,
right.
We assume it's going to be Sammy Watkins. For some reason, he still has name recognition, although he's fallen flat the past few years. Yet he's going around with a guy who had 71 receptions, and that doesn't include his 99 rushes for 444 yards. So Tariq Cohen had over 1,000 yards from the line of scrimmage, and he's getting drafted in the same round as Sammy Watkins. I mean, I think that's unfair
Right.
for Tariq. I
Well,
don't think
this year
Sammy's
more.
that valuable. I really don't.
No, I would agree with you. And Hardman as well. At least not this year. I almost see Hardman being more a part of that offense by the end of the year, just due to injury. I don't trust Sammy Watkins as far as staying healthy. A full season. Hardman, I don't know. We'll see. But I think I would take Hardman in that later round as opposed to Watkins in the sixth right now. But like I said,
I
I think
agree.
he's going to fall off, keep falling off. But yeah, and some other news, just to touch on some news that we have going on. We came out that the Zeke situation actually has progressed for the worse as far as for any if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. Yeah, at least if I were a Dallas Cowboys fan, I would want to see Zeke get signed personally. Um, Arguably the best running back in the league, no question. But what we're seeing now is that it could. He said that he is not going to play at all with no new contract, and that's scary. That's absolutely scary because obviously the it's going on with Gordon still. Last year with Bell, that keeps coming up, and Bell started this whole thing, this new era of pay us what we're worth, pay us up, and
That's
we're feeling the effects of it to now.
We are, and that's what Zeke is saying. Zeke is saying, "I will not play without a contract." But when you tune into ESPN, Fox Sports, they're saying, "Oh, he's going to play," and the consensus among not only people within our league, I'm not going to drop any names, but also
Right.
when it comes to quote unquote fantasy analysts, they assume he's going to play. He dropped from the first, second, or third pick to his ADP is now like 1.4, so it's barely even dropping. And what I just want to warn everybody is to listen to what the player's saying. Do not listen to. Well, I don't want to say do not listen to, but don't listen to the experts, because I put this on. You can find this on Twitter. I said that the analyst will analyze and the media will analyze dog shit if it increases their ratings.
Right. I agree. And real quick before we jump into our main segment here, and I'll tell you a little bit about what we're going to talk about. But you can follow us at on Twitter at GC_FF show. Please do. We appreciate any support, any follows, retweets, anything you can do. Obviously on Facebook, the GNC Fantasy Football Show, and YouTube, the same under the GNC Fantasy Football Show. Pretty soon we'll be up on all platforms. Right now we're up on iTunes for your convenience. Listen to us on your commute. We love it. You'll love it, I think. And like I said, we told you last week, this is a new experience for us. So we're going to get better and better. We're passionate about the sport and fantasy football more so than the sport, I think, in a lot of
True.
ways. But what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about some teams that last year were on my shit list. They finished at least on my shit list. Those teams, just to go through them real quick, and like I said, we'll go more in depth. Raiders, 49ers, Browns, Cardinals, Jets, and Lions. All of those teams finished sub 500 as far as wins last year. But Chandler and I, we feel there are lots of fantasy relevance on those squads, and that's pretty much what we're going to jump into here. So, if you'd like, Chandler, you can go ahead and lead us off.
Yeah, many of these teams are on the up and up. I think that's obvious, at least with the offseason acquisitions, the development of rookies, primarily at the quarterback position. For instance, the first team I want to bring up would be the Jets. Regarding the Jets, I think what everybody most is curious about fantasy-wise is how will Le'Veon Bell produce? Am I right?
Sure. Yeah. No. I mean, can Le'Veon go from the high-powered offense in Pittsburgh to the mediocre Jets, which they have been for years. Yeah, I'm with you. I think everyone is as well.
So what's the fear? So the fear is, will he start slow? Will he be rusty? He missed an entire year. Will this hurt, his fantasy production, his on-field production? That's the question. The answer, we're not going to act like we know 100% what the answer is, but what I believe is I do not think there's going to be any rust. I think he's going to get a ton of work still. I'm talking anywhere between 300 and 350 total touches between rushing and targets. I don't see rust. I don't see him slowing down. I think he's
Sure.
great value, late first rounds. I know in our league, I got a little insider information from a current league owner as to somebody is going to be taking him before the 5th pick. What do you think about that?
Before the 5th pick. Yeah, I mean, me personally, I'm not going to do that because, like we always say, it's about keeping risk to the to the less as you can, mitigate risk, minimize it as much as you can. I have no idea what Bell looks like as a Jet, and you kind of hit on it. You hit the nail on the head in your fireside chat yesterday. I am not. I'm going to minimize risk as much as I can, and just wait and see what it plays out. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Is Bell the talent still there? Sure, but does do the Steelers miss him as much as fans think or want to think? No. You know what I mean? Like the running back, unfortunately, is easily replaced, as we saw with James Conner. I'm not going to say easily replaced, but if you have a good system and a good coach, especially a good offensive line or a decent one, as long as you have some sort of talent there, then you're going to see production, I think.
We live in a day and age where the running game is important because it opens up the passing game. So unless you're the Ravens, who said they're going to go back and run things that you haven't seen since the 1950s, that's why the running game is
Right.
important. To pick up short yardage situations, but primarily to keep the defense honest so it can open up the passing game. And another thing we don't know is exactly how Adam Gase is going to use him. I've never been an Adam Gase fan. He had one good year, and it was with Manning as his quarterback back in Denver, where Manning threw for 5,400 yards. But after that, he's yet to have a good season. He went to the Bears, 21st year or 21st in the league in yards per game, 23rd in points. He was trash at Miami. I hate how at the time, I hated how he treated Kenyon Drake because I thought Drake was extremely talented. However, you see that Kalen Ballage is starting to get starter touches or starter work in training camp. So maybe Drake isn't what I thought that he was. But we don't know how he's going to use Bell. The only thing I really know about Gase is he loves to spread the running back out wide. Loves to put him in the slot. Loves to motion him from the backfield to the line. So, and I think Bell's great for a system like that. But like we're saying, we still don't know how it's going to play out.
So just to so we're kind of in agreement with Bell, I feel like. And unless you're just a Bell truther, which they are out there, I mean, I feel like that's pretty much the baseline, right? Like, we know Bell's got talent. Bell has the athleticism, but we have to wait and see.
He's going to be a top
some other unknown.
We do know this, right? Would you agree? He'll finish as a top running back.
I mean, like I like kind of hesitate to say yes, but at the same time, I can't say no. You know what I mean? Like
I don't doubt it
for sure.
That's where
the talent is. I mean, I think back to Barry Sanders. Personally, one of my favorite running backs ever to watch. Growing up watching him on just a year in, year out bad Lions team. I mean, still yet he did some amazing things there.
Sure.
But some of the unknowns with the Jets, one personally that I am looking for in the later rounds, mid rounds, is Robbie Anderson. But my problem with again, just like Bell, the athleticism is there, the speed, even the build. I like a taller receiver, a heavier receiver that's fast.
Very fast.
Robbie Anderson has that. Um, my problem though with Robbie Anderson is Darnold. Last year Darnold, he finished the season with a QB rating of 47.9. That's not very good. And I think a lot of that comes from he threw only 17 touchdowns. I mean, I say only 17, but I mean he was a rookie last year, only played 13 games. But also, like, in those 13 games, he threw 15 touchdowns. Or, excuse me, let me back up. 17 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. So that's like his interception percentage is pretty much right along the line his touchdown percentage. That's not a quarterback that is fantasy relevant in my mind. So I think we kind of talked about this earlier. You said that you thought he would be a good quarterback for the team, a good NFL quarterback, if you will, but not a good fantasy quarterback. And again, I think you just nailed it there.
Yeah, Darnold's not going to be a guy that's going to put up fantasy numbers. I mean, occasionally, if you find the right game, you could stream him and start him in your lineup. But he's not going to finish as a top fantasy quarterback. He's going to be a great game manager. He's going to make the throws that he needs to make. Regarding Robbie Anderson, I do like Robbie, but I am hesitant. So from 2017, he actually dropped about 300 yards compared to the 2018 production. So in 2017, he had 941 yards, 7 TDs. 2018, 644 yards, 5 touchdowns. 644 yards, 5 touchdowns. So that was some regression that you don't want to see.
Right.
That has me worried. Although somebody's got to catch the football. This team.
Who was the quarterback in 2017? Was that McCown?
Bro, I have no idea.
No, I mean,
was it McCown?
I'm pretty sure it was off the top of my head. I'm gonna say off the top of my head it was McCown. I could be wrong there. That's something I have to look into. But either way, last year he had Robbie Anderson for the majority of the time. With Darnold, he had over 90 targets. That's not bad.
That's not bad.
But like you said, no, he dropped in yards. That's not a regression that you like to see.
Not at all.
He only had 6. He did have 6 touchdowns. I say he had only 6 touchdowns, but he had 6 touchdowns, which I think on 50 receptions, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. And then on top of that as well, his yards per reception, he was averaging 15 yards a reception, which is just
mind blowing.
That's out there.
It is.
Yeah, that's.
But here's the question for you: he's going roughly around the same time as Keke Coutee. Who would you take?
I'm taking Coutee every time. Give me some of that Texans offense.
I agree.
Sure.
I agree. And the problem is Robbie Anderson's probably the number one wide receiver on the Jets, and we're still saying, hey, Coutee hasn't even locked down the number 2 role with Will Fuller there. He may be the third option, and we're still saying take him. But that may not be an indictment on Robbie Anderson so much as the Jets offense. Now, I do think the Jets are going to be a good team. I think they're going to double their win totals. I think you can see this team go 8-8, potentially, if a game falls their way, 9-7. They're not going to the playoffs. I do not have this team in the playoffs. However, this team's going to get better. How high-powered is this offense going to be? I don't know. They acquired 19 free agents in the offseason. Some of those were on the defensive end.
We'll see. The only other person I really want to touch on there is Herndon, just because we know that the tight end landscape, it's tough out there.
It's very tough.
And I think Herndon could turn into a safety net. In my opinion, he's a bigger guy. Last year, his last 10 games, he was seeing around four targets a game, or actually 4 receptions a game. All of his targets were downfield. They weren't your typical what you see tight ends like running out or even a drag route, something like that. They were downfield. They were over 10 yards on average, as far as his receptions. But
To touch on what you're saying,
I
real quick,
yeah,
he was one of 12 tight ends in the past decade to have 500 yards or more receiving.
Herndon. Wow. Okay, that is a good stat. That's kind of just shows you exactly what we know about the tight end landscape. You have to either spend your money early, so to speak, in drafts. With an Ertz or a Kelsey. I'm pretty as far as tight ends go. I'm pretty big on OJ Howard this year.
I
But
like
someone
OJ.
like that, or you can wait late and kind of like kind of throw the die and see what happens. And I think Herndon, you could do worse than Herndon if you're going to wait until late rounds for a
If we're
tight
talking
end.
late round tight ends, if Mark Andrews is gone, then I'll definitely target Herndon.
Right.
Um,
I'm with you.
but I am a type of guy who's not going to spend a top 3 pick on Kittle, Kelsey, or Ertz. I got actually today, I got dogged for this decision because I was not. I don't agree with taking one this early simply because of what you have to give up. There are 3, maybe 4 tight ends that are worth an early draft pick. But the fact that tight ends are so few, that means only 25% of the games you play in a fantasy season, you're going against somebody who is going to project to massively win that tight end battle against you. Everybody else, you're pretty much on the same page. Between tight end 6 and 12, there was only a total of 20 fantasy point difference. So late round flyers like Chris Herndon, like Mark Andrews, safety nets, that's kind of where my thinking is. I'm not trying to hit big early on a tight end when I would miss out
No.
on, RB1, RB2, top tier wide receivers. It's just not something I am willing to risk.
Sure. I'm with you. So anything else on the Jets before we go on to, are we going to go on to the 49ers?
We can go into the 49ers. Yeah, I'm prepared.
Okay. All right, on the 49ers, if we're done with the Jets, like I said, look for in my Robbie Anderson's on my board. Herndon, if you want to take a stab at that late. I think Chandler agrees there with me. Not always do we agree. It seems like we have been the past couple weeks, but that's not always the case. But moving on to the 49ers, there's a lot of things going on here, a lot of things that we can talk about. You have Jimmy Garoppolo coming back. Last year, the 49ers finished 4-12. Again, probably, I think that's tied for third worst record in the league. But coming out last year, Jimmy Garoppolo, he got the big contract coming down from New England, being behind Brady all those years, a couple of years that can't hurt. A lot of hype that was surrounding it, and then at first we saw him living up to that hype, and then just a nasty injury with the ACL tear against the Chiefs. I believe it was week 3, maybe week 4. Just kind of halted that. But the same thing that we had last year was who's the number 1 RB, and we're still dealing with that. Where do you stand?
I think I have Tevin Coleman ranked high on my bust candidates. That backfield is so convoluted. We don't know who's going to. Now, they could list Coleman as the number 1 running back and list McKinnon or Breda as the backup, and then, put the other one at number 3.
Kind of like we saw, well, not kind of like we saw last year, but you're saying you're going to see decent production from multiple
Everyone's
running
going to
backs. Right. Last year I talked about Cohen. I thought he would come out and be a starter. He just doesn't have the size to be a starter, I guess, in the NFL. But he saw better production, at least fantasy wise, and well, I would say stat wise, than Jordan Howard. And I was big on Cohen being the starter before the end of the year. That didn't work out. But I think here in the 49ers in backfield, yeah, all the talent's there. I would say that this is the most talented backfield, you know,
Per
and that's a
average,
problem
yes.
though. You know, at least from a fantasy
I think
perspective,
I told you
at
before the
least.
show, I believe all three running backs could be a starter on most NFL teams. So the NFL teams who don't have elite running backs could start a McKinnon, a Coleman, or a Breda and be fine. I almost have them. I have Breda almost in that Rashad Penny range, just slightly under like a Chris Carson. You know what I'm saying? But the problem is
Right.
they're
Hmm.
going to use all three. And there was news coming out of the training camp that Breda was getting a ton of work with the first team offense. Okay, as is Coleman. But what they're telling you is, hey, Coleman's going to touch the ball. Breda's going to touch the ball. McKinnon was just cleared for practice. They're paying him a lot of money. He's going to touch the ball. Now, if one of these three guys do go down, the fantasy relevance of the other two dramatically increases.
Right. No, I'm with you. I personally, I'm steering clear of this backfield unless it's one of the running backs that fall to me in late rounds. Again, talking from
I
a
agree.
fantasy perspective, I think the 49ers as a team, we are going to see a complete turnaround from last year and the last couple years.
We are.
I'm excited for the 49ers, like for 49ers fans out there, because I know what it's like to be the team that just can't do good no matter what it seems like they try. But I'm a believer in Shanahan, the Shanahan offense. So I'm excited to see what they bring to the table. But we know about the three-headed snake in Burita, Coleman, and McKinnon. Sorry, McKinnon went out early last year, even before the season. We didn't mention that, but I think it was before the first game before or the first week before the regular season last year, and he was the clear-cut
And his
starter.
ADP last year was
Right.
around
Yeah.
2.5, 2.6.
Right. So I mean, I'm trying to steer clear of that backfield. But Jimmy G, there's some real stuff to talk about there. I mean, he runs the ball. Obviously, you saw that got him hurt last year, so maybe he will kind of rethink that before he pulls that ball down. I don't know. Um, Personally, as an Eagles fan, it hurt to watch. It was a nasty injury. Dealt with seeing Wentz go down, and not in as gruesome of a fashion, but it just hurts to watch anybody go down like that, especially with a season injury, a season-ending injury with the ACL. But I think he could be a decent fantasy quarterback. I'm not drafting him, but he's not. I think he's going undrafted.
And I think that's the play there. I think Jimmy G is more of a watch and learn, see how he produces because his sample size is so small. And now most everyone would agree that he has shown that he does have the talent. What he hasn't shown is a 16 game sample size of what he can do.
Sure. And
So it is somebody I would steer clear of for sure. Maybe stream him if he's trending well, if you run into a situation to where he has a good matchup
right.
against a particular team who maybe has a weak defense or it's going to be a high scoring game. But draft wise, there are other guys I think I would take
Right.
even around the 14th, 15th round.
Regardless of whether or not you trust in Jimmy G, you have to consider or at least talk about Dante Pettis. I think he's going to, other than Kittle. I mean, Kittle's a no brainer as far as production.
No brainer.
Yeah. I mean, we don't even have to talk about Kittle. I think he's going to have decent numbers. Probably, as you said, maybe even better than Ertz numbers. I don't think we have to hit on anything there.
I have Kittle ahead of Ertz in my rankings. I have him ahead of Ertz. I got Kelsey, Kittle, Ertz, and then OJ right
Yeah.
behind.
I mean, I have him very close. I could see Kittle even, being well above Ertz just because there are so many weapons on the Eagles. But back on, behind Kittle, the next guy up is Dante Pettis, and there's no question behind that. Last year we didn't see much more than a sample size. He only had 27 receptions, but on those 27 receptions, he almost hit 500 yards. He had 467,
Wow.
had 5 touchdowns,
Wow.
and then he was averaging 17 yards a reception. Again, that's way above average. And those are stats that I like. I like to see, especially whenever I think someone's trending up. Right? I don't think this is accidental. I don't think this is a fluke. I believe in Pettis. I believe in the talent there from everything that I've read coming around, news reports or even the beat writers, which, like you always say, you got to be careful on that, what you read into that. How do you feel about that take on Pettis? How do you feel about Pettis?
Oh, I'm big on Pettis. If he falls to me in the right situation, I'm definitely going to take him. In a lot of my mock drafts, I have been pulling the trigger on Pettis. The only thing that concerns me, well, it doesn't concern me, but I believe that Deebo Samuel does have a chance to take that number 1 receiver job from him. But Deebo Samuel easily could turn into the number 4 receiver. He is a rookie. We know it's difficult for
Right.
rookie wide receivers to have true fantasy success.
Well, this
finishing
was
that
something
top
I
25 range.
didn't mean to interrupt,
So
but
I think
while we're on the
even
subject and before I forget, that
You're
Pettis
fine.
talked about during the offseason. I saw an article or an interview or something. He was saying, this was a tough offense to learn, and he said, I've worked hard at it. Believe in me." Even Jimmy G was coming out and saying, like, in some interviews, Pettis looks good. I believe in this guy. He's going to be great this year. So maybe not so much it was that the talent or maybe he just couldn't execute because he was learning. And I think that's like you said, Deebo being a rookie, we may see that this year. We may see like some shine, some glimmer, but him being a rookie, I think it may take some time to adjust. And again, I didn't mean to interrupt, but while that was on my head, I wanted to get that out.
No, I agree, and if I'm going to take one wide receiver
Okay.
from this team, it's going to be Dante Pettis. It's not, and we're not even talking about
Right. Now, I mean,
what was it Goodwin? He
not really. Last year for a couple of games. No, not. I mean, he's a speedster.
I'm not
He
big
is,
on him.
but I just don't think he's any more than that. He's extremely undersized, and like I said, I mean, he'll get 30 to 40 receptions, I think. Now, if I'm wrong about that, I'll eat my words. Maybe there's something there that I have not seen, but what I saw last year, I'm not even. I don't even think he's fantasy relevant.
I ain't challenging on that. I'm right there with you. I'm not big on Marquise Goodwin. Now, nobody's going to be drafting him. I'm not going to say nobody, but I doubt anybody in our league really even is considering him. They're not on their radar. So he's going to be on the waivers. So if he starts to pop off, you can drop some fat money on him and pick him up.
Yeah.
Not worth the draft
Absolutely.
pick.
So the next team that we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the 4-12 last year, 4-12 Oakland Raiders. Now, this is one of my teams that I would consider my dark horse team, if you will. I think they're, even in my own head, I'm still asking myself, am I really this high on them coming into the season? I'm finding more and more reasons to get behind them. What are you thinking about it, Chandler?
The Raiders are a question mark. I think that's for sure. I am excited about them. I love John Gruden. I don't know if that's because he's a TV star now and become coach, because he did spend 10 years out of the league. But they got some weapons. Derek Carr did have a season where he led the Raiders, what were they, 14-2 going into the playoffs before he breaks his arm, I believe.
Right, he won the MVP that year, right?
I believe he did, and they were putting up massive points. They were scoring close to 32, 33 points a game. The production we were seeing was absurd. It was the year that I went to the fantasy championship and I had Latavius Murray as my RB2. Amari Cooper had a year that made him a household name. Derek Carr is still a question mark for us, though.
That's exactly what I was going to say. The only question mark I have here is absolutely 100% Derek Carr. That offensive line is below average. I'm worried about Derek Carr more so than I am the offensive line, though. He hasn't been himself since that MVP year. But that being said, you have a target like Antonio Brown coming in, the best wide receiver in the league, arguably
league.
for a lot of people, not even arguable for some. Some would say without a doubt. And sometimes I lean towards that. Sometimes I'm leaning out of that. Just depends on the day of the week, I guess. But if we go back to his, which you can't really base it off of this different team, different coach, different system. He averaged with the Steelers the past 7 years over 150 targets every single year. That's huge.
Will he get the same work? Literally.
Will he get? Well, yeah. Will he get the same work? Will they have that same opportunity? Will the offense stay on the field, be able to stay on the field like that Steelers offense of seasons past? I would argue that he's not going to see that type of production. He's not going to see those type of targets. I don't know. Eventually, unfortunately, we start to see regression in players like this, and he's starting to get to, he's going on his 8th year in the league, I think, maybe 9th season, somewhere in there. But he's getting older. He's getting up there, but he's not lost a step.
No, he is.
I mean, he's got, even with that frozen foot that he's got right now, even with that frozen foot, I would take him over. I would put him in the top 10 percentile, or top 10%, top 10 percentile, if you will.
Literally,
but
sorry. Literally in my
Go
notes,
ahead.
I put AB is dope. It's AB. Do we need to say more? The real question is Carr. Do not anticipate 1,400 yards. That's my feeling about AB. It's AB. He's incredible. One of the best, if not the best, wide receiver in the league. But I think we both can agree we're not going to see 14 TDs, 1,400 yards again. But what you are going to see, you can almost guarantee 1,100, 1,200 yards, 9, 10 touchdowns. That's worthy of his ADP, which is about, 2.1, 2.2?
Yeah, I mean, he's been creeping up, and I think as we get closer, you'll see him start to go maybe even first round in our league. Our league's a little bit different than most. I would say closer to higher stakes at least than your average league. But last year he has not had under 100 receptions since back in his 3rd year, where he had 66, and that was way back in 2012.
The numbers are so retarded.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are there. You can't argue against them. Last year, close to 1,300 yards. He hit 1,297. What was high last year was his touchdowns, 15%. There's no way I don't see him getting 15 touchdowns this year. I will eat my hat if he gets 15 touchdowns. I will sit on that and bite it. I don't know what else I can say about that. I don't see him getting over 10. I'm right there with you. Just in this Oakland Raiders offense, who's throwing in the ball? I don't see that happening. Moving on from him, though, I don't think we can really say much, or even we kind of hated on him a little bit, if you will, moving from a team to team. That's as much as you can. But the big talk around the Raiders camp, even before this, before the Hard Knocks episode came out yesterday, I didn't get to watch it. I'm going to watch it tonight. I've heard a little bit about it. You watched it, right?
Oh, yes, and it was fantastic. It was Hard Knocks, and the problem with Hard Knocks is they bump players up. They probably make you think they're better, going to perform, better than they actually will. I remember watching the Buccaneers Hard Knocks, and it made me a huge Jameis Winston fan. So
yeah,
we know how that turns out.
I recall that as well, which I'm bigger on Jameis Winston this year than I have been in recent years. But
you're not big on Jameis Winston. You're big on Bruce Arians.
That's right. That's absolutely right. But Josh Jacobs, he's the rookie coming in. He's going to be, I think he should be at least a workhorse, the cowbell coming in. Whether or not Gruden actually works him as that will make a difference. I see that happening, though. Do you feel the same about that?
I have concerns regarding Josh Jacobs. See, unlike you, I do watch college football. I am a big college football fan. The same way with the NFL, I don't have a favorite team. I mean, my favorite college team is the Tar Heels, North Carolina Tar Heels. However, they're not very good at football. So I just enjoy college football as a whole. But he played behind Damian Harris, who was drafted by the New England Patriots. So in his best year, which was his senior year, Josh Jacobs only had 640 rushing yards, 247 receiving yards, but he did have 14 touchdowns. But he was splitting carries. College football is different
Right.
than the NFL, but he was splitting carries. Now he's going to be tagged as the bell cow back. At least we assume he's going to do, or is going to be. He is 200 pounds. He's 5'10". He's a big guy, but we have not seen enough yet. We have not
Sure.
been given a reason to be uber confident in Josh
Yeah,
Jacobs.
no, I agree, and you're right. I don't pay attention to college football as much as I do the NFL, but I do pay attention to college football stats. There are only like certain stats that actually transition into the NFL, and we have not seen that with Josh Jacobs. We did not get that sample size in college to be like, okay, I'm confident in this guy. I see his ability. He's got the athleticism from what I saw, as far as his attributes and from the rookie combine and all that from training camp. Sounds good. But what does all that mean whenever you go to full game speed in the NFL? We will see. Personally, I am not drafting him fantasy wise. He's going right now, I think, around the fourth round. I could
Too
be wrong
early.
about that. Yeah, I think he's going around the fourth round, maybe fifth. I think he'll go earlier in our draft,
Well, I
just
think
because
he
of
will
one
too.
team.
Yeah, because
Just
of
because
one
of one team
particular
owner.
owner who
Yeah,
shall not be
yeah.
named, Jason.
Just a bit of a homer there, but another big pickup though for the Raiders. I almost said Steelers. For the Raiders was Tyrell Williams, and you're a
Thank
big
you.
Tyrell Williams fan.
Thank you for touching on him.
Well, I mean, I'll touch him in certain places. It just depends on where he goes.
No, I like him. He's another guy who averaged who had an above league average for yards per reception at 15.9. He had 41 receptions, 653 yards in his rookie year with the Chargers. I'm very excited, but still questions linger about Derek Carr.
Yep, I'm with you 100% there. Tight end, I'm not even sure they know who the tight end there is going to be. Last year was Jared Cook. He's with the Saints now, which that could be a good landing spot for him. Last year, though, Jared Cook was actually the number one, receiving target there, if you will. Other than Richard. Richard is, I think, going to be obsolete with Jacobs coming in. You may see him on some third downs, but not like the 70 receptions that he was nearing last year.
No, I agree.
So
I agree 100%. The thing about the Raiders, unlike the past two teams we discussed, the Jets and the 49ers, I don't see big improvement on their record. Like you said, they were 4-12. I still have them sub 500. More along 7-9, 6-10. It's kind of where I have the Raiders. So I know there's going to be a lot of hype, especially after people start watching Hard Knocks.
right.
I'm not going to jump on this hype train. I'm not going to. I don't think it's there. I think potentially maybe in year 3, year 4 of the Gruden era, we could see some excitement, some justified excitement around the Raiders.
Right.
It's not going to be this year.
I'm with you. I don't think there's any more there that we need to touch on as far as the
No.
Raiders offense. We'll see how it ends up. I'm a Gruden fan. You're a Gruden fan. We watched him bring the Bucks a Super Bowl back when we were.
What a year that was.
Yeah, it was wild. So I mean, I'm not a non-believer. but I'm not a believer either. I'm pretty neutral.
And
We're
many
gonna
would
move
call
on.
us blasphemous.
Yeah, well, that's Jason would. Yeah. Jay Jason's someone from our league. Anyway, moving on to I think we're. Do you have any more you want to touch on with the Raiders?
I'm done with the Raiders.
Yeah. So I think this may be your dark horse team, yours personally from last year, or um, even moving up, and that's the Browns, the Cleveland Browns last year, man. Going from a 1-15 team the year prior, last year they were 7-8, and new hot shit in town. We got Baker Mayfield,
Baker, money maker.
absolutely. And last year he started 13 games. He played in 14. He had close to 500 throwing attempts in those games. That's a lot of throwing. And moving in the new coach Freddie Kitchens, he likes to throw the ball, and I think he knows how to work Mayfield. I think we're going to see that work out even or play out even better this year. I'm big on Mayfield this year. Who are you excited about in this offense?
Obviously, Odell. I'm excited about Baker. A lot of people do have Baker within their top 5, top 6 quarterback rankings. I'm not that high on him. I'm not as high as his ADP says I should be, but I am excited about Baker. Quick question. Who did Baker take the starting job from last year? You should know this answer.
Oh, Tyrod Taylor. He was a sleeper for me last year, and I think he was a lot of.
He stayed
He
asleep.
was yeah, he stayed asleep. That's for sure. That after that first game, I knew I had made a mistake. I don't want to tell the audience who I traded for Tyrod,
I
Patrick
won't make you
Mahomes.
do that.
But I was big on Tyrod. Anyway, Baker came in. He stole the job away. I don't with an injury. I wouldn't say he stole it away. With that injury, it actually projected him into that starter situation, and he handled it like a boss. I mean, he
Yes,
did.
he
From
did.
that week forward, they were doing nothing but slinging. Chubb came in. He provided that ground and pound that they needed, that spark on that, and the offensive line as well did really really well. So yeah, with Odell Beckham coming in, I don't think we're gonna see anything change as far as the Landry targets. Last year, I was higher on Landry than I was in Miami, and that was a mistake uh, on my part, not
The
on Landry's part, but just the way they worked him, the way they used him, and that's not going to change. I don't think you're going to see. I think you're going to see Odell Beckham with close to 140 targets this coming year.
Yes, I have Beckham close to 95 receptions. He's definitely going to exceed that 1,000-yard marker. I definitely have him closer to 9, 10, 11 touchdowns. I do like where he's going in drafts. He could even have a bigger year than that. It's because of Baker. We know this team is on the up and up. Last year, Baker threw 27 touchdowns. Okay, 27, and I think we can see that go up closer to the 30, 32 mark, around 10, 12 interceptions. That's kind of where I have Baker. I'm very excited about this team. Unfortunately, the Browns are prone to drama. Baker is a guy who loves the spotlight. That could cause some issues. You bring in a diva like Odell. If things aren't going right the first few games, if they start, 0-2, 1-3, you could definitely see some drama occur, which could have a negative impact on their on-field production. But they have a weak schedule after game 6 or 7. It really takes a turn, and they start playing some sub 500 teams. And I think Nick Chubb's a
Right.
stud. I do.
Yeah.
And
As
I
long as
think he can
as long
carry
as
it.
as long as Odell Beckham leaves his kicking net up in New York, that whole scene. As long as you don't see anything like that, I'm with you. I don't want to see any drama from Odell. Hopefully, he's matured from the transition. He should take it as take the high road there, and see it as an opportunity to actually put himself elite, not only as a player but also as a person.
As a
Um,
leader.
as a leader, exactly, because he is in that veteran role now. Hopefully he realizes that. I think in New York, maybe I don't know. I guess he thought maybe he wasn't getting the respect, and that showed out pretty big and pretty in the spotlight. But here also too, Njoku. We talked about some tight ends earlier. I think Njoku has the talent, athleticism as well. But is he going to be overshadowed? Is he even fantasy relevant with those other fantasy, I would say, stars even? Chubb, Baker Mayfield. Well, Baker Mayfield's left out of that. Chubb and Odell Beckham, Landry. Is Njoku even on your radar as a fantasy target?
Oh, absolutely. And the reason he's on my radar is something we touched on earlier, is the fact that I'm looking at tight ends late. He's not going super late. He's going around the 7th, 8th rounds. But he's definitely a guy I could pull the trigger on. I think he's going to get work. He's gonna have the opportunity there simply because he's going to be a check down guy. He's going to be a safety net for Baker. Odell's going to cause so much attention, like drawn his way. Landry's going to have attention his way. It's going to leave the flat, the short curl, the under routes open for Njoku. I do
Right.
like him. He is athletic. He is talented. This team, I think, is going to score a lot of points. There's work there to be had.
I'm with you. I think he finishes the season as a top 10 tight
I do
end,
too.
which isn't saying a lot. You have to take that with a grain of salt because after, top 4, top 5 tight ends, you're looking, 150 to 200 fantasy points, if that. A lot of the times, like more like the 130 points fantasy. And I'm talking PPR, our league that we keep up with, our money league, anyways, is a PPR league. But I see him finishing as a top 10 tight end without a doubt. So I'm with you there.
Yeah.
Anybody else here that you want to?
I mean, I guess
touch on?
We could touch on Callaway. However, I mean, he's off my radar.
Yeah. I agree.
Facts.
We'll see him. I think we will see a couple, games where he'll end up with 2 touchdowns in a game. Mark my words, he'll end up with a game or 2, and fantasy wise, people are going to pick him up off the waivers. And then that next week, after they put him in their flex, after those owners who pick him up after that big game, they'll slide him right in that flex option, and they're going to regret it because he's not going to produce anything.
You're damn right they're going to regret
and
it.
that's what.
If anybody's going to be hurt by the talent on this team, it's going to be Callaway.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, he's going to have those couple touchdown games, and that may happen once or twice throughout the year. But other than that, yeah, I'm ready to move on. We're going to move on to, you choose. You want to go on to the Cardinals or the Lions?
Let's go to the Cardinals. I think everybody wants to talk a little bit about Kyler Murray. There's some fantastic things coming out about him from training camp. He's the type of guy who played under the same coach at Oklahoma as Baker Mayfield. And both of them are geniuses when it comes to, the whiteboard. Putting up a defense on a whiteboard and saying, hey, what play are you going to run? Who are you going to throw to? If they're in this set, what's the check down? They're their football IQ is through the roof. He is a guy who is uber athletic. He's very small, though. And this does concern me. However, this would concern me more if I was an NFL owner more than a fantasy owner. Does that make sense?
It does. He's going to get out of the pocket. He's going to run the ball. That's without a doubt. He also, you touched on familiarity. Christian Kirk is someone that he played with. That, in my mind, that's huge. Maybe they already have that connection there. So,
another thing is David Johnson. We can't forget about David Johnson.
Oh, I haven't forgot about him at all. He is going to do nothing but benefit from all of the changes that have came in this past year. He is the biggest beneficiary, I think.
And we know how bad the Cardinals were last year, and David Johnson still had 10 touchdowns and close to 1,500 yards total from the line of scrimmage. Okay? And we're assuming that this team is going to be better. And if this team is better, that just means David Johnson is going to produce more. I have David Johnson over Le'Veon Bell. I have the 6th pick. I'm looking at Adams, Hopkins, and David Johnson, and I really, really want to convince myself to pull the trigger on DJ. That's where I'm at.
I think you should. Very few elite running backs in that tier, and David Johnson absolutely qualifies for that tier 1, in my opinion. Well, okay, so you have like, for me anyway, there's that tier 1, then there's that tier 1B. You have the first 4, which 2 of them, or at least one of them, in Zeke, is out. And I'm talking about Barkley, I'm talking about Kamara, McCaffrey, and then of course Zeke, who is absolutely out of that tier at least for me, until he puts pen to paper. Yeah, DJ kind of slides up there for me in the draft with the whole Zeke situation.
Absolutely. And the thing is, his injury that he suffered in 2017 was not below the waist. It was a wrist injury. It's not like he suffered a torn Achilles or he tore an ACL. So there's no reason that we should think there's actually an injury history there. He played all 16 games last year. I think he's going to play all 16 games this year.
Yeah.
Pending something catastrophic. And I think he's going to produce. This team's going to be much better than they were last year. And he's actually getting kind of shit on because I do believe he's in that tier with Kamara, with Barkley, with McCaffrey. He's going to finish as a top 3 to 5 running back. And yet he doesn't get as much hype. And I'm offended by that.
Yeah, I have him, as far as running backs go, right at this point, I have him finishing for sure top 5. Because he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's that check down that you would like in a running back. He's also that workhorse, every down back. You're not going to see anybody else.
How about Fitzgerald? Where are you on Larry? Because I know, years past, you've been a huge Fitz fan, but we all understand that he is up there in age. I think Christian Kirk is going to not dominate, but he's going to have more targets. He's going to demand more work than Fitzgerald will this year.
Sure.
Where do you sit?
I think honestly, where I sit, I have been a Larry truther. He's been on my fantasy teams year in, year out for 4+ years. His draft value is always great. It's always there, so I never can pass up on him. Last year, I regretted that. The year before that, though, in 2017, it won me the league. It did. It
did.
Jarvis Landry and Larry Fitzgerald won me the championship. And that was because of receptions. We're in a PPR league. Ertz as well. But, I mean, solely those two. I mean, they finished as the number 1, the number 2. I'm pretty sure, respectively, being Landry than Fitzgerald in PPR leagues. And that was solely off of their receptions. This year, I have him and Kirk finishing with about the same receptions, but definitely Kirk with more touchdowns as well as more yards, because what Larry's going to be more that safety net for Kyler Murray, and that may actually turn into something that I'm not projecting, which could be a steal in drafts. So I'm not passing on Larry. I'm not. I can't.
Based on where he's going around, there have been multiple times where I've been put in a situation to where his ADP is falling to me in a particular round and I'm taking other guys instead, or even reaching for a Curtis Samuel. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm talking, it's reaching because Curtis Samuel is, going about 2 rounds after Larry. However, I'm willing to pull the trigger there on Curtis before take Larry at Larry's ADP. And that's just me. I hate his age. Right. But the thing is, if Kyler can come in and have a competent year around 25, 27 touchdowns, maybe Larry does become a guy who can, have one more, late breakout, if you will.
Sure.
I just don't think I'm going to pull the trigger on it.
I can respect that and I can understand it.
I love him. Don't get me wrong.
With the Cardinals, I think the steal of the draft will be if you can get Kyler Murray at the back end. I'm saying like outside the first 10 quarterbacks that go. If that happens, which it won't, then you have yourself a steal, because I think Kyler Murray will finish as a top 10 quarterback after the season's done. I really do. Yeah.
Let me pose a question to you, real quick. To close out, Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson, who are you looking at?
Kyler Murray for sure. The weapons, he has more weapons there, at least more known weapons. Lamar Jackson, the rushing is comparable to Kyler Murray. They're going to be running the ball about the same. That's going to be I'm watching that horse race. You know what I mean? We'll see who finishes with the most. Yeah, we'll see who finishes with the most rushing yards. I think Lamar Jackson will, but Kyler Murray's not going to be far behind with that. Kyler Murray is going to throw for more. He's going to have better passing stats. So that's why I'm thinking he's going to have that rushing. Plus, on top of that, he's going to have decent passing stats, and he's going to finish as a top 10 fantasy quarterback.
I think Murray does throw a better football than Lamar Jackson. I do, like, naturally. I think naturally when it comes to throwing the football, Kyler Murray is better than Lamar Jackson. However, Lamar is in his second year. He showed that at times he can be competent. Because of this, I've actually been targeting Lamar late, just really passing up on quarterbacks in my past few mocks I've done. I've passed on, my love for Wentz. I've passed on him, and I waited and I waited and I waited, and I just pulled the trigger on Lamar Jackson. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, he can start 70% of my season, and I'm excited about it.
That's a perfect note to close on. We didn't get to the Lions today. We're running again a little long. We'll get this content down. We'll get this down to a science, I promise. But we will get to the Lions eventually, and their fantasy impact, because there's a lot to touch on there. But you hit on it there late. I cannot stress enough. If you've been playing fantasy for years, you have not tried this strategy. Test out waiting on a quarterback until at least round 9, round 10, round 11. You will not be dissatisfied. There's always quarterbacks there. The talent is a plethora of it's a well of talent. It's the deepest position there is. But other than that, anything else you want to touch on before we close this session out here?
No, I think that I'm good. I will agree with you there real fast. There's no reason to pull the trigger on a Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers early. Just wait. You can stream quarterbacks and be fine, and your team's going to be better as a whole due to the additional talent you were able to pick up at running back and wide receiver in those mid to late rounds. From like your round 5 to 8, you'll be better off taking running backs and wide receivers than you would if you did snag what you believe to be a top tier quarterback in that position.
Can't agree more. Well, that closes out this session. Again, my name's Greg Bowen. I'm here with my co-host, as always, Chandler Stepp. You can follow the show at Twitter. That's at GC_FF. Follow us on Facebook. That's the GNC Fantasy Football Show. Please subscribe on YouTube as well under the same name. We're up on iTunes. We'll be up on Google Podcasts pretty soon as well. Other than that, catch us next week. We're going to also have some other content coming out throughout the week. We'd love your follows. See ya.
Peace.